Hello, everyone. This is Leanne Allegretto, Service Hydrologist at the National Weather Service office in Missoula, bringing you an updated flood outlook for the spring as far as April is concerned. So, this is an update to last month's March 2025 flood outlook, and we'll see how things have changed and progressed through the month of April. So, what has changed since March? Well, low and mid elevation snow has mostly melted out across the region, generally speaking around 5,500 feet and below. And snow in the highest terrain, generally speaking 6,000 feet and higher, is really starting to come down now. So it's beginning to melt in earnest. We are entering our spring runoff season, and we're seeing it most pronounced in central Idaho and in west central Montana. Northwest Montana is still holding on to quite a bit of snow, and their snow melt so far has been a lot slower, except for mid and low elevations. But overall, everything is right on track and looking pretty good. The way April temperatures trended was pretty much across the board, anywhere from below normal to above normal temperature trends, and I'll show that coming up. Comparatively speaking, the majority of March ended up being a warmer than normal month. So we were pretty cool in some areas. We got some snow in mid-April, and that helped things kind of trend in a good positive direction for our snowpack. So I thought I would show the modeled snow water equivalent, which is a combination of various forms of, aerial and satellite and observations on the ground showing the snow water equivalent across Montana, Idaho, and peripheral regions. And this image shows March. And if we go to the next image, this is April. So late March, March 29th to April 29th. And you can see if I click back and forth, how much snow has eroded across the region. In March, we still had a lot of low elevation and mid elevation snow. And then in April, you can see by today, April 29th, we've gotten rid of most of our low and mid elevation snow. So only the highest amounts and the highest peaks remain. And that's good. Would we have liked to hold on to our mid elevation snow a little longer? Yes, of course. But overall, between March and April, this is where we stand. So how about the water year? I did this last month in our outlook, and I'll do it again this month for April through the April 28th timeframe, beginning October 1st, the beginning of the water year. This is the percent of normal precipitation. And you can see the areas that stand out. A lot of orange, which is the 50 to 70% of normal, and then a lot of yellow as well, which is 70 to 90%. So basically across the board, precipitation has been below normal. And then just for April, the current month precipitation trend on the left and the temperature departure trends on the right show, again, a lot of places in central Idaho and along the Idaho-Montana border are below 50% of normal for precipitation for this month. And it's been a dry month. Despite some of the precipitation that we've gotten, even in the form of snow in the highest terrain, we're still well below normal for overall precipitation. And then I mentioned before with temperature trends, along the Continental Divide, we were near to slightly below normal. And then as you move further west, we start to get into that slightly above normal temperature trend, which lasted through the bulk of the month. So our snowpack status, with all things considered, we are mostly below normal to slightly above normal. Above normal there in the northwest and along the divide, and then we get to the below normal, so below 100% of normal, obviously, is in the west central Montana into central Idaho areas, and well above normal if you get down into like eastern Oregon into south central Idaho. But for Missoula's area of concern, we cover west of the divide and then Idaho, Clearwater, and Lemhi counties in Idaho. Last year at this time, not great, and a lot worse than we are this year. So the probability of main stem rivers exceeding their flood stage through August 1st, those little dots is kind of a broad brush view. And for the most part, we're looking at a very low chance for any of our main stem rivers to reach their flood stage or exceed it. And I'll get into that in more detail as we go forward. Let's take a look at I'm just going to do a broad overview of our three main stem rivers that are that go through major populated areas, and we'll start up north first with the Flathead River at Columbia Falls. This is the 45 to 120 day forecast, and there's a lot on this graph, so please pause the presentation and digest it at your own speed. But for the sake of time, I'll just kind of go through what we're seeing here. The orange line here is the observed for the Flathead River at Columbia Falls. This is river flow with discharge in cubic feet per second. So that's the volume of water that is moving through the river. The black line here shows the current forecasted hydrograph for what the river is forecast to do in the coming months. And then the different colored dash lines, the blue is the 90% of climatology, the green is the 50% of climatology, and then the red is the 10%. So like the 1 in 10 chance, if you will. And I put the black bar here to show that this is flood stage of 13 feet for Flathead River at Columbia Falls, which has a volume, a discharge of 41,794 cubic feet per second. So you can see through the months of May, June, July, and onward, the forecast does not come really anywhere near the flood range, the flood stage for Flathead River at Columbia Falls, except if you consider the 1 in 10 chance, which if you look at the peak flow probability, we do have a 10% probability that the Flathead River at Columbia Falls will exceed its flood stage sometime around late June, mid to late June. And then a 5% probability of reaching 13.72 feet around late June. So take this as an indicator of where the river levels could be at these estimated dates. And of course, there's the caveat that the flood stage at the Flathead River at Columbia Falls moves from 13 feet to 14 feet when Flathead Lake, reaches full pool, which is 2,892 feet. So let's look at the Clark Fork River above Missoula. This is the same thing. The black bar here shows the minor flood stage of 7.5 feet on the Clark Fork above Missoula, which is 10,702 CFS for discharge. And you can see the forecast line. We're going to see this bump up because we're going to get pretty warm in the next week or so at the time of this recording. But then you can see that we do exceed it quite a bit if we look at the 10% probability. And, the 50% median is right here in the green line. And we're approaching flood stage, but we don't quite get there. Now, this is a forecast as of the date of April 28th. Of course, this will change. But as of right now, it depicts essentially the peak flow probability of the river, which is showing 7.5 is flood stage. So we're right there at that 10 percentile probability around the beginning of June. And then the 5% is 9.16. So we do exceed 7.5 later in the month of June. All things considered, this is, of course, without abnormally high rainfall amounts or rain on snow events or rapid melt-off, extraordinary melt-off that happens real fast, that would contribute to much higher flows. So again, just kind of painting a picture of what the flood probabilities are. And then, of course, the Clearwater River at Orofino, big river. Here, it's interesting because the flood stage at the Clearwater River at Orofino is 17 feet. So this river can hold a lot of water. And the forecast does make it reach 12.5 feet, which is nowhere near the minor flood stage of 17.5 feet. And even the 10%, the 1 in 10 chance, doesn't quite get to 75,000 CFS at 17 feet, which is the flood stage. So, again, this is without any crazy atmospheric river events or rain on snow, rapid snow melt, etc. So overall, what we're basically saying is that there's a very low chance of flooding. Could happen, but again, as of right now, where it stands, end of April 2025, doesn't look like it's going to flood. Of course, this is the Clearwater at Orofino, and then I threw in the South Fork Clearwater at Stites. And again, there's very little to no, basically no chance of it reaching either one's flood stage coming up. So we'll zip through the other river locations across our area: the Salmon River at Whitebird, Little Salmon at Riggins, and that's the Salmon River at Salmon proper. The only chance we have is a 5% probability of Little Salmon River at Riggins reaching and exceeding its flood stage about mid-June. Of course, please pause and read this at your own pace if you would like. I'm going to zip through these though. The Bitterroot River at near Darby on the right, and then near Missoula on the left. Very low to no chances. We get close, we get, 10.69 is close to 11-foot flood stage, but will we see river rises? Absolutely. Of course, we're melting snow. It's what rivers do in the spring. So then we'll move on to the other portions of the Clark Fork. This is Clark Fork near Drummond and Clark Fork at Deer Lodge. The Clark Fork then at Plains, below Missoula and above Missoula, which I already spoke about in detail. But as you can see, there's not a lot of red showing up in the below Missoula or near Plains, but there is that exceedance probability here above Missoula. Swan River, I don't know if I gave the Swan River any love in the last month, but it does start to show up as a 5% probability of exceedance. There is that 10% probability, 6.41, getting close to the flood stage of 6.5. And this is all in the mid to late June, even July 1st. Look at that. But we'll see how things pan out over the next few months. And then the other portions of the Flathead River, there's the North Fork near Columbia Falls, and then the Middle Fork near West Glacier. So what are we looking at? The May through July trend for temperature and precipitation. Temperature's on the left, precipitation is on the right. Not a great picture at all, especially with areas still remaining in some sort of drought category. We're looking at a trend of above normal temperatures for most of the state of Montana and all of the state of Idaho, and then a seasonal trend of below normal precipitation expected for the entire Northern Rockies. If we adjust that slightly and we go June, July, and August, it's not much better. It doesn't change all that much at all. We remain above normal for temperatures and below normal for precipitation as a general trend. And that is it. Thank you for watching, and thank you, of course, for your support in all we do. Our next spring flood outlook will be recorded and updated in May of 2025. I'll try and get it out at least at the end of the month to see how things have panned out across May. But if anything happens before then, I will come back even sooner with an update. So thank you very much. I appreciate you watching. Give us a call anytime with your questions.